And a good day to you, Explorer Nation. John Lynskey, your ambassador for Alumni Affairs, here with Season 5, Episode 17 of Looking Back with Lynskey as we journey through the past of Columbus High School. And today's guest is a man who's done so much for Columbus and has somehow managed to remain totally under the radar until right now. A guy who is everywhere. Uh, 16 years at Columbus High School, tremendous wrestling coach, founder of the Anglers Club. He's now our swim coach. He chaperones trips. He drives buses. This man, ask him to do something. The answer is always yes, including agreeing to doing this podcast. So it's my pleasure to introduce Coach Mike Dukes. Mike, thanks for being here today, buddy.
No problem, no problem. Anytime, anytime.
Yeah, so Mike, you've had an interesting journey to Columbus High School, and you've had an interesting journey in general. So let's go back to where it all began, as they say. And so you went to Southridge High School,
Mm-hmm.
and you wrestled for the legendary Jim Husk. So talk about your time at Southridge, wrestling for Coach Husk, and how you ended up in college, and then we'll get into Columbus. So take us back, Mike.
Yeah, so I wrestled for Coach Huss back in '98 through 2001. Um, my brothers wrestled for him. Coach Huss can probably tell you the day I was born, actually. Because I was born my brother's senior year. My brother was a state champion back in '83, and I was born in '83. And Coach Huss kind of gives me the story where my brother didn't want to wrestle because I was being born, and he had to kind of fight his way to get my brother to wrestle against South Sunset, who was a really top competitor. So 18 years later, 14 years later, I actually met him in the hallway. I could distinctly remember, be like, "Hey, do you know Elijah Dukes?" And she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Well, I'm his little brother." His eyes just lit up. Like, I got a, I got another Dukes, you know. But yeah, I wrestled for him 4 years, won two state titles back to back, undefeated seasons. Um, Took third my senior year, second as a team, and then
What weight class, Mike?
I was 119, 125, and 135. I'm
Okay.
not that weight right now, so uh, far from it. But holding up well. But yeah, I was a lightweight, quick, fast, strong. Um, and then I guess the cards laid in my favor, and I got a phone call from a college in Dubuque, Iowa, Loras College, which is a Division III Catholic school. Didn't know anything about it. They flew me out for a college visit, and if you think I was quiet now, you should have saw me back then. I didn't say a word during that whole trip. And they're like, "So what do you think?" I was like, "Well, where do I sign?" And you know, I think throughout time, God kind of placed me in certain places. So going to Dubuque, Iowa, kind of gave me a platform of dealing with different cultures, various people. Um, Once I did my wrestling career, I went back to indoor track and wrestled there for 2 years. But then I stopped from injury, and then came back to Miami, seeking employment through Miami-Dade County Schools, but they were on a hiring freeze. So I reached out to Coach Husk, and without hesitation, brother Pat pulled me in for an interview, and here we go.
So let's back up for a minute, Mike. What was it like? Well, first of all, what did you love about wrestling? Why wrestling? You're a good all around athlete. What was it about wrestling?
Well, I'm the baby of six, so there's a lot
Okay.
of hustling in the home. So it kind of, when you're dealing with brothers who are bigger than you,
Yeah.
even my sister can throw down. Um, so you see as a like I wasn't able to compete in competitive sports or combat sports because I had an eye injury. So I was a track runner and cross country. So looking at my brother's medals and stuff like that, when I got to high school, I looked at my mom and dad. I was like, you can't stop me now. You know, I'm going into a combat sport, so or a contact sport, so they agreed to it, and it played out in my favor. So I think
Good.
it had to deal with tussling with my other four brothers and my sister, and you know, there we go.
What was it like, Mike, as a young black kid from Miami going
Hmm.
to school in Iowa? I mean,
Oh
that's classic Midwest American white bread Iowa.
yeah, it was a culture shock, man. So when they flew me up for a college visit, I went with one of my wrestling buddies, Marvin Rodriguez, really smart guy. He knew what we were going into. I didn't.
Okay.
And as soon as we landed, because we flew into Chicago and we took another flight out of Chicago in a smaller plane, and he
Okay.
was like, "You see that?" I was like, "What?" He's like, "You see the cornfields? How they stretch out for miles? There's nothing out there." I was like, "Oh crap, here we go." Um, but I think it kind of prepared me because, like I tell my kids today, kind of prepping them up, especially the seniors and juniors are looking to um, venture on into college. I give them the same information, like, hey, you got to do your homework. You have to take a college visit, not during their off season, during their peak season,
Okay.
to get a feel of what the whole environment is, and not when kids are away on break. But honestly, I can say that it prepared me because I tell them I was the black dot on the white page,
Yeah.
and I was like the only minority on the south side of campus, and the other was on the north side of campus, and he was a junior or senior. So, but you make your way through. They're really friendly. That's where, and even some of the kids come back today. I'm like, in Miami, we have a tendency to kind of look down, not look
Yeah.
at in the eye because they might perceive it as to be a threat. And when I got to college, they're like, "How come you don't make eye contact?" I was like, "That's just what it is. You don't make eye contact with the person on the street of Miami." Um, but
Sad but true.
yeah, it is sad but true. But you start making eye contacts, and it kind of opens you up. You start to smile and stuff like that. They have open doors, so you can walk up to your buddy's campus house and open a door, and they're always welcoming you. And so, it was totally different, but it was a great experience. It was a really great experience.
Yeah, the weather's a little different too,
Oh
huh?
yeah, totally. Yeah, it's cold. Yeah, I didn't realize what windburn was until I got in Chicago.
There. Oh, say no more.
Yeah.
So, Mike, did you? I mean, we all arrived at Columbus in different ways. Did you always have sort of that inkling that you wanted to be a teacher and a coach? Was that always there, or when did that develop?
Um, I knew I wanted to come back home and teach back at the high school, kind of, sorta. But I think the one true point where it kind of clicked, when I graduated high school, I became a lifeguard and water safety instructor. So basically, teaching kids how to swim. And there was a young girl by the name of Tiffany, tall, young, which came out to be awkward. And she was there for the whole summer, Monday through Friday, trying to learn how to swim. Um, and we just couldn't get her to do it. And then finally, I just kind of just said, "Hey, you know what? The heck with it. Here's 10 minutes of free time. Whatever you want to do, just have at it." And then all of a sudden, she put her head underneath the water and began to swim.
Wow.
And it just clicked. I was like, "Holy crap!" That was even her mom till this day. She was like, "Thank you." And at that point, I think that's where kind of getting kids to realize their capabilities of what they're able to do. Because there's really no one playbook. Um, you got instruction manuals and theories of how to teach, and sometimes you just got to say, have fun, you know,
Yeah.
and it clicks. So I think that was the point where I know I wanted to get into coaching 100% and teaching the kids to realize their full capability um, from that point. Yeah.
So you call Coach Husk,
Hmm.
and he makes things happen.
Hmm.
describe your interview with Brother Pat, because that guy, I mean, you had to be a little taken back when you meet that guy for the first time.
Yeah. From what I recall, I remember leaving work, coming in, and it wasn't a long interview, to be honest. It was 15 minutes tops. And it's been a while. Really interesting guy, really likable guy, like
Yeah.
really down to earth. And he was like, "Hey, you're hired on the spot. You know, you seem well put together." And I think that's what college kind of did for me.
Okay.
Uh, and he's like, "I think that was his last year." He's like, "Well, this is my last year, so this is my last gift. So here we go." And
Nice.
I think it was a great investment.
Nice.
Overall, I think it was a great investment. So.
So you had some experience after going to school in Iowa, because when you arrived at Columbus, you were the only, as I recall, the only African American on the staff.
The only dot on the page.
The only dot on the page. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, how quickly? Two things. What did you know about Columbus other than athletics before you got there, and how quickly did you adjust? And was your skin color ever an issue?
Um, Going back into high school, I knew who Columbus was.
Yeah.
Um, Not for the sport of wrestling. There was one or two good guys, um, but not so much to where you had to worry about it.
Okay.
But when I came back, it was like, wow, you know, this school has kind of grown um, across the board academically, always great standards, but athletically, they're reaching out, expanding. Um, so obviously, before any job, you have to do your homework and see what you're getting into. So I read up on that and read up on what's Marist. You know, you got to do your homework. So
Yeah, man.
same thing. Go on the webpage, go to the about, and see what they're about to see if you're a good fit. And going back into it, I think college kind of prepared me for it. It private college, not too many people like you. You got through 4 years of that. Um, you have somebody who knows your whole family, so they can coach you through it. And to be honest, it wasn't that difficult.
Okay.
And I think Cody McKeon kind of sums it up. He was like, "We're kind of afraid of you. You didn't say much, you know." When I was like my first 2 years, I was subbing, and when I come into class, I was quiet, just like, "Hey, I have a job to do. You have a job to do. Let's get it done." Um, so I think that sense of being quiet and looking stern kind of put the boys in their place, not to kind of test you. Um,
Hey, that's okay too.
yeah. So and then you start to open up as you go along. And I think at this point I'm still flying underneath the radar, nice and quiet, but I touch a lot of things. I think I really open up in my own way throughout the course of 16 years.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Mike, because some people are functional mutes, where
Hmm.
you are very selective, because when you choose to speak, you have a lot to say. You just don't always choose to speak.
Right. That's my mother and my great aunt enemy. You know, we really sit back and listen a lot more than we speak. But then when we speak, it's like, okay, maybe there's a point, because you listen more than what you speak. So, yeah,
Well, when you're speaking, you're not saying anything that you don't already know. Where
right,
if you listen, you're learning.
correct,
I get that. I
yeah.
get that. So, um, what was it like? And we were talking earlier, a lot of us at Columbus did this, particularly if you played football at Columbus, you ended up playing for the guy or coaching with the guy that you played for. What was it like coming back and coaching with Jim Husk, who's obviously a living legend?
Hmm.
And how explain the transition between, okay, he was my coach, now I'm working with him, but that takes a while for that transition to occur.
Right. I think it came down to the culture that he had at South Ridge. Um, and I think that's something that most schools lose as they lose their the coaches that have been around 20, 30 plus years. So I understood his work ethic. I understood um, his expectations, um, working hard. Wrestling is a grind. You're
Hmm.
hands-on, combative, day in and day out with your workout partner, 2 to 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, tournaments on the weekend, off-season tournaments, preseason tournaments. So having that work ethic um, to get through that and the expectations of going to the next level. Like, hey, we're not satisfied of winning a district title as an individual. We want the team title. We
Okay.
want the regional title. We want to try and get back to that state championship level, putting guys on the platform. So I understood way before getting into Columbus what the expectations are. Uh, it's all about getting the kids in the program to understand where we want to be. Not everybody's going to be on the same page, but that's the expectations that we set as a head coach and assistant coach. So I already knew what he was about. I knew you couldn't pull his chain, um, but it was fun, man. Like the stories he had were fun, so it was nice actually. Yeah.
Um, and you hit on an interesting point a moment ago. Wrestling is an individualistic sport, but Jim always had the ability to make it a team concept. Yeah,
Hmm.
because you're out there one on one on the mat, but it and you have to think, well, this is my match. But I always noticed that Jim was very team oriented in an individualistic sport, and that's a hard thing to pull off sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to do that because um, yes, you want the individual state titles. That's like Nick Wethy. He went 60-0, which is really hard to do. And the matches they're getting more matches in a year because when I wrestle, you topped out at about 35, 40 matches. So to
Okay.
go 60, you're putting a lot of miles or a lot of time in the room and on the road. Um, but you want to achieve both. You want to achieve getting the kids on the platform individually, and you want to achieve getting your team on the platform as a state championship as well. So we're coaches in that world of wrestling, just like any other sport. Wrestling is a lot. It's very intense. So you put a lot of time and effort, so you want to see it pay off. Um, and then once you got a really cohesive team, when you got a team that works together and know how to work, it's actually fun. That's where you become more solidified, and you're actually letting the kids play.
Okay.
Um, and that's great because when kids are playing, they're having fun, and that's what we did in high school. Beating up on each other day in and day out as teammates was actually fun because you weren't cutting anybody short, and everybody came out on top in the end. So it was a win-win. Um, so yeah, it was. We understood the expectations and everything, but it was good times.
And you being a state champion and young enough to get in there and still wrestle with the kids, I'm sure that helped your credibility with
Oh
the
yeah,
kids. Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
mess with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't mess with them. And it's about teaching them like, hey, listen, you don't have to be the biggest guy. Um, Mark Galesian was not the strongest, but he was very agile. He had a two-stroke motor that was strong, and he just goes. But he just couldn't beat the South Dade kid who eventually went to Iowa. So um, we couldn't ask Mark more than what he gave because he gave it all. But just teaching them is not about the strength or the size. Sometimes about the fight. It's about the technique. So you go about letting the individual know of how you can outfox your opponent, pick out their weak spots, and things like study your opponent. Nick Wethy was really great at getting the iPad and giving it to his parents and following the bout sheets of his upcoming competitors
Okay.
and studying them in the stands. He'll win a match. He'll study the video. Done. I got it. And he'll go out there and execute. Um, so we teach the kids how to shift gears between like, hey, you have to be a little bit faster because this kid is going to wear out in the third period, or don't lock up with this kid because he's strong. Um, so there's a lot of, you've been a coach. There's a lot of tricks to the trade. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So coming back out of college, telling them like, hey, yeah, I'm strong, but you don't feel my strength, but you see my speed, and dealing with a kid like Kyle Mann that
Oh,
hit with the speed. That's a big kid.
yeah.
Uh, but when he grabs you, you got to grab him back. And he's like, Coach, you actually strong. I was like, yeah, I just don't use it all the time. I don't have to use it all the time. And that's what we want you to understand. You don't have to use your strength. Reserve that until you have to. So, yeah.
And one of the first things I noticed about you, Mike, is that you were a coach, but you were also a teacher,
Mhm.
and you took teaching as seriously as you took coaching, and you were always organized. You were always structured. You knew what. I mean, it takes a while, obviously,
Yeah.
when you're young, but as you
Yeah.
evolve, you knew what you were doing. You knew what you wanted to achieve. You had goals, and the kids had you had expectations for them. And so when I would walk into your room, particularly the old fishbowl room
Yeah.
outside the
I love that room, man. I love that room.
that room was so cool. Oh
Yeah.
my God. It was like the island of misfit toys in there.
Yeah.
But you could walk into in some people's rooms and not a lot would be going on. But in your room, it was a relaxed atmosphere, but the kids were focused, they were on task. And when this, you walk into a classroom and you feel the aura when
Right.
you walk in. You feel the atmosphere, and you know right away this is a good class. Things aren't good in here. Your room was always it was chill but focused.
Yeah. I
And
think that has to do with, I tell kids, hey, I have a job to do. You have a job to do. Um, Columbus has their expectations, and that's what they're essentially paying me for. So we have to get through this together. I'm
mm,
not going to make it super difficult for you. We're going to make it relatable. We'll get to the point. Have a little bit of fun doing it, and the structure makes everything a lot easier across the board. Because if you're not organized, it's going to be chaos, and I think everybody sees that.
yeah.
Um, so coming in with that game plan of this is our objective for the day, let's get through it. Um, you're going to have your time, but give me my time first, and we'll have fun getting through it. So at that point, I think that's where the kids, at least for me, they respect you because we work first and we play later. So you let Coach Dukes do what he has to do. We'll get through it, and then you'll have your time. So it's a win-win.
What you said a moment ago, and I find this to be a common theme for so many teachers who also coach, is we're in this together.
Right.
It's a team.
Yeah.
It's not me versus you or you versus me. We're in this together. And I think that makes for the most successful
Yeah.
classes,
Yeah.
you know.
And it allows the kids to really buy in um, once they understand your whatever you have to do. And there's a lot of moving parts. So everything from swimming to having three different preps to driving to dealing with the anglers and the spearfishing club. So they understand like, hey, he has a lot on his plate. He still gets his job done, but he's fair about it. He's not going to come in and bark at you. Let's get through this, and everybody wins.
You just touched on all the things we're going to continue to talk about because you wear so many hats at Columbus High School. So you coached wrestling for 8 years and you decided it was time to
Hmm.
move on from that.
Right.
And, I think it's important to know for a coach, well, for anybody, okay, I've done this long enough, and staying any longer would be counterproductive.
Right.
But you've still, you're a young guy. You got to do something else. So and this is just so interesting. You go from wrestling to founding the Anglers Club. So talk about where your love of the water and fishing came from, and spearfishing and everything else, and talk about how that transition occurred.
Right. So actually, I'm not actually done with wrestling. I officiate it now, which is a whole lot better. A whole lot better. And I'll get into the fishing part in a sec. So
Okay.
um, I officiated. I officiate on a high school level and a middle school level. Um, I get to go home every day. You
Which is
know,
nice.
it's nice. I got my weekends. I can pick and choose which tournaments or which meets I want to referee. So it frees up a lot of time, frees up a lot of space on the table. And the great part about it is I like the middle school better than the high school because they're so wild. Um,
Okay.
there's actually some kids who came to Columbus, like Bandy. I
Yeah.
remember Bandy wrestled at Richmond. So it's nice to see those kids in middle school, and then they step on campus. And they're like, "I think I know you."
I know you. Yeah.
I think yeah, I refereed your match in middle school. So they like, oh, you're a really great official. You're very fair. But also at the same time, um, going into the anglers, um, I think one of the best things that happens is, for me at least, is getting bored, finding new things to do. It's I can't stay still. I gotta move. So during that awkward 2 years of getting out of college, of trying to find where to go, um, I started fishing a little bit. I went to Miami-Dade College and got motorcycle endorsement. I got scuba diving certified, um, and just doing those things here and there. So when I stopped with coaching wrestling, we had actually there was a kid named Jimenez. His little brother is here now. Eric Jimenez. His little brother is here now. Michael Jimenez. And Eric was on the fence of quitting wrestling his junior and senior year, and his parents were saying, "Hey, coach, he doesn't want to compete, but we want him to see it through. That's a life lesson to finish
Mm.
your what you started." So I was like, "Hey, listen, senior year, you can't be on JV. Just come in and be a really great practice partner. We understand that you don't want to compete, but um, your parents are teaching you the right thing to finish what you started." And then I asked him, what do you like to do? And why did they call you Snooky? He's like, I like to fish for snook. I was like, oh, I like to fish here and there too. And then all of a sudden we were like, maybe we should start a fishing club. And I pitched it to brother Brady. He was on board. And his senior year, we started the fishing club. And we were still trying to find what to do, where we wanted to go. We had no idea. Um, Simple things from bass fishing, and then bass fishing became bass fishing tournaments. And then we were like, we want to have go on a charter. So I started looking into different charter boats with Kelly Fleet, Robbie's, Bud and Mary's, Reward Fleet. So the light bulb turned on and the wheels started to spin of what we can actually do. And the alumni, once they found out, they were on board. So individuals like Ignacio Baboya, he's like,
Mm.
"What do you need, coach? I'm in." So he was like, "I got some resources with FWC. We can come in and do a seminar." And like, okay. So there was really no true idea of where we wanted to go, but we know what we wanted, if that makes sense. And
It does.
it just headed the right direction. And now it's to the point where it's a lot, but it's easy, but it's a lot. There's something to do at least 2 to 3 times a month. Once we hit full steam ahead. and it's great. I mean, the boys love it. A lot of prizes. We work with rocket trailers, Sea Hunter boats, with the alumni down there. They invited us plenty of times to take a tour of their factory and go out on their boats. Rocket trailer with Maso, seeing the business side of building trailers, the schematics, the ins and out, the components, and even with the economics of it, buying equipment at the right time, working with FWC. Uh, the trips are funny. Going to the boat show and working with IGFA. So a lot of things just came into place, and it's a really, really, if the kids really take advantage, like some of my seniors, Tyler Moore, Glasser, Flades, Saladrigas, once they buy in, they're like, wow, over a course of 4 years, I think we're on vacation, you know. We are on vacation because coach kind of set us up to where um, we even went out to Louisiana last year and fished for yellowfin tuna. And getting there was a lot of work, but the payoff, man, was really a great experience. Like everybody landed 40, 50 pound plus tunas, bent over the rail, forearms, biceps, lower back is on fire. Um, and just going through that process. And even they caught what they wanted, but the experience, we still talk about it to the day. So that club has really, really, it's really something. It's really something. Yeah.
And that's classic Columbus organic. Don't really have an idea,
Right.
don't know what we're doing, but we want to do it. And then you figure it out. And now it's you have a waiting list to get into the Anglers Club.
Oh, that
Go
waiting,
figure. I mean,
that
that's
waiting.
nuts,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
So I mean, um, Columbus is growing, and a lot of people, don't understand the day-to-day operations, because they want what they want for their son. And I listen. So next year it's not going to be a waiting list. We're going to do away with that. We're going to do away with the raffle. It's just going to be an open enrollment for 1 week. Get in where you fit in, and let's make it happen. But a way that we talked about of how to resolve the kids who um, haven't made it into the club is to host student only tournaments.
Okay.
And
Okay.
there's kids who won $400 reels, um, gift cards to Bass Pro, um, a lot. Like I clocked one kid, he came out at least about $3,000 in either gift cards or fishing gear over the course of 4 years.
Wow.
And that's it's a lot. So
Yeah.
we're still learning how to navigate, and that's just part of being on a boat, just navigating. You know.
Yes. And it's part of the diversity of Columbus that, go figure. There's a fishing club, but the number of kids, and it makes sense if you take a step back, the number of kids in South Florida that love to fish, of course. And so it's just great to see that there's a place for everyone at
Yeah,
Columbus.
yeah,
And, you know, and,
and
and
that's
you are,
why and that's why we expanded into the spearfishing club,
yeah. Okay.
because there's kids who don't fish; they just like to go underwater and hunt. So we figured out the right path of getting those kids the opportunities to go out and spearfish safely. So
Hmm.
we get them certified with Miami skin diver Chris Tavera, who's an alumni. He certifies the kids in free diving so that they understand the risk that goes into it. And we hold tournaments. And I usually take the seniors and juniors out at the end of the year down in Key West as a senior and junior trip with a licensed chartered company to kind of seal the deal. Because there's a lot of risk involved in the spearfishing side, but we cross our T's and dot our I's and make sure everybody goes out and come back safely. So we done a really good job with that, and with both clubs, there's still a lot of ideas on the table that we haven't touched that's going to be coming up in the next couple of years or so.
Mike, what you just said is something that, again, not everybody at Columbus is willing to do because, yes, you're taking on a great deal of responsibility. You got a
Hmm.
lot of kids, you're out on the water, you know, you got guys with spear guns,
Right.
Columbus guys with spear guns, uh, you know, that could go wrong.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
and so a lot of teachers are going to say, I'm not going to take on that responsibility and the travel and everything else, that's a sign of dedication.
Right.
And
But that's part of coaching. You coaching them up. You're like, hey, here's some risks. We want to avoid that. So when you go in the water, don't have a loaded, spear gun. When you come out the water, make sure the bands are off. Um, Even to how you hand the spear up to the person on the boat. So we make sure that we execute all of those to eliminate any type of risk.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, and plus the boys are going to do it on their own. They do it with their fathers, their grandfathers, and their uncles all the time. We're just giving them the opportunity to do it properly or to teach them properly, um, and to do it as a school activity as well.
that's great.
Yeah.
And Mike, you're also one of those guys at Columbus. If you're asked to do something, there's a one word answer. Sure. It's just, you drive the bus, you've driven the bus. I mean, a lot of people don't want anything to do with driving a bus, but you'll do it.
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility. Actually,
Yeah.
I prefer driving the bus better than my truck. Um, Man, that airbag seat is cush. So there's a lot that goes into it. I know Dave Pugh, and I really everybody asks me like, well, who's the one guy that represent Columbus well? I'm like Dave Pugh. The guy comes in with the same energy every day, and um, there's certain things that stick out from McKeon, Pugh, brother Kevin, and one of the things were presence.
Yeah.
Uh, Presence. That's whether it's picking up a drama show or a music performance, going and watch a kid play sports. So driving allows me to do that, because maybe volleyball is playing during school time, and I have a volleyball kid in my class, so it allows me to see them to play, and they love you for it. They smile because they see you there. There's that sense of presence. Um, so it's just not about the driving aspect of it and the incentive of it, but it's more about hey, I get to go see a kid who normally where teachers or other coaches normally wouldn't see them perform um, outside of the classroom. So it kind of brings a smile to your face, and when they actually talk to you, like, hey,
Yeah.
did you see that kill I made? Did you see me out there? I'm like, yeah, I saw you. You're good. So um, and plus, that makes it easier for you as a teacher because
Oh, absolutely.
they
That's for sure.
yeah. So they see that you're investing in them more, which is great.
Yeah. Going that little extra mile or sometimes that big extra mile, it means a great deal to them and it develops a sense of loyalty, you
Yeah,
know. And, when your kids are loyal to you,
yeah.
you're going to be
Oh,
okay.
makes your job a lot easier.
Yeah, it does.
Your
It
job a
does.
lot easier.
So let's talk about making your job harder.
Try
About
not to do that.
about 6 years ago or so, we needed a swim coach,
Oh yeah.
and this is classic Pew logic. Pew, McKeon, and I were sitting around. We need a swim coach, and he says, "Well, Dukes is a lifeguard.
Yeah.
Ergo, A plus B equals C." So
On your side of things.
to
On your
us, it was
side.
okay, done
Yeah.
deal. So talk about what that was like. I know what it was like from our end. What was it like from your end, Mike?
Um, it was funny. 'Cause I remember I was like, oh God, here comes the three kings. What did I do now? What did I do? Um, and I think it was on a Friday, And at that moment, I finally understood the term voluntold. Uh, like, coach, we need you to take over the swim program, but only if you want to. But we need you to. Um, and that was on a Friday, I believe, in the weight room where the microwave is. And
Yeah.
and you guys didn't give me too much time to dwell on it. And it was like, Monday, so you're gonna do it, right? Like, well, sure. All right, here we go. But it's great. I mean, it's
Uh,
totally different. Um, a lot of people are don't know that side because of the water safety instructor side of teaching kids how to swim. So I understand the mechanics of all four disciplines in swimming. Um, Coaching side of it, from the wrestling, motivating kids, getting them on the right page, um, and the organizational part of it, because I believe at that time, everything from uniform to schedule, it was kind of all over the place. So to kind of sync everything in, um, from being organized and coaching a previous sport, it kind of put everybody on the right page of being transparent. Here's the schedule, um, the practice schedule. Here's the competitive schedule. Tell your parents to clear their schedules for this. Um, the uniforms. You know who Columbus is walking through the door. We
yeah.
all look the same. You like, oh, that's from head to toe, clean shaven, haircut, same uniform, same speedo or jammer, same swim caps, and that's a swim program. Um, and the driving of the bus makes it a whole lot easier, pulling the kids out of class, getting them to the venue, and getting them back. So everything just came together because I think you guys told me to do it twice. Um, the kind of Brandon Viva's season, I remember that, getting him up to states, and there was a coach or two, and then you guys asked me to come back on, and then the parents kind of also coerced me to continue the program.
Yeah.
And thank God we did, because winning seasons. We had our Mateo Silva go to states this year,
Yeah.
so that's getting us back um, to that level. Brandon Vivas is now my assistant coach, along with Emilio Marin and Zachary DePaz. So we have three kids who swam club and three kids who swam Columbus. A kid, Brandon Vivas, swimming collegiately. So we have a really great coaching staff, um, to help project the program um, further, or in a, the right direction. And we actually have a freshman diver.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah.
as we're trying to expand and get that program with having a diving program for those who wants to dive.
Yeah,
So
and that's been gone for so long
yeah,
because we used to have great divers. I mean, I'm talking, 40 years ago, whatever. So that's awesome, Mike.
right,
Um, and it's ironic that you've got Vivas, coming back and working with you,
right,
and swimming was important to him.
yeah,
Swimming kept him in school.
yeah.
Uh,
And some that happens to a lot of kids.
yeah,
And let's be honest, a lot of kids aren't college bound. Sometimes trade school might be a great option.
yeah,
Um, Maybe military, and then some kids actually need sports to get to the next level. Um, and you got to give them that opportunity. So
yeah.
Brad was one of the best skilled swimmers that came through the program. Not the only one, but one of the best. And actually, I was waiting for him to finish college. I was calling his mom just about every year to be like, "Is he done yet?" So he can come back and give to the program. And at the end of last summer, he called me right before the swim season, and man, like, I think my heart smiled on that phone call. It's like, you're the one I was waiting for to come back. So he's back.
That's awesome, Mike.
Yeah,
I mean, you're such a team player, Mike. I mean, you're in the parking lot every morning, and we knew we could just look over there. You're going to be there.
yeah,
You're just steady as a rock. And then, you talking about some of the things you've taken on and the trips, but you took on a huge, huge undertaking when you chaperoned the trip to South Africa. That was big. And again, Dr. Lee, God bless her with her health situation,
Right.
someone had to step into the void, and you did. And
Yeah,
it turned out to be a great experience.
yeah, yeah. I think that trip gave me 3 extra gray hairs, just the stress of it. But it once again, just being organized, just thinking about coaching, getting people to where they're supposed to be, um, doing the trips with the anglers club, so understanding, the risk and everything like that. Um, the paperwork was a lot, but I knew that once we got on the plane, Akuna Matata, like everything's good. We're good, because I gave all the information out. Here's the game plan. Once we get on the plane, we're cush, we're good. And it was a great experience, man. Like, um, different, some similarities, but beautiful. Africa is a really beautiful place to be. Yeah. So we went from Miami up to Paris, Paris into Johannesburg. We spent about 3 days in Johannesburg. Did a couple things there. Went to the apartheid museum.
Mm.
Um, a lot of cultural things, tasting the food, but really understanding what the South African people, had to go through, at those hard times, felt. And then came from Johannesburg down into Cape Town. Cape Town is really, really, um, really nice. The port area is really nice, but still, you see on the outside, some of the townships is really, it's night and day. So you still see that the effects of the apartheid, how it still lingers on today. Um, the segregation between, the whites, the blacks, the colors, and stuff like that. Um, it's really still being felt. Um, Going up to Table Mountain, which is, you ever heard of Table Mountain?
Mm-mm.
Okay. It looks flat. So from down bottom, it looks flat. But we supposed to have a trip going up there, and there was this lingering cloud that just wouldn't clear up. And then on the last day, it cleared up, and we went up, and then you can see the whole Cape Town. You can see over. You can see Lion's Head Mountain. Um, we did a tour over to Robbins Island, where Mandela did a fair share of his time
Okay.
over there. We've seen his cell. I can distinctly remember walking down third door on the right. We even met one of the individuals. He was young at the time, but he spent some time. He was the tour guide there. He spent some time with Mandela on the island with the line quarries, breaking down the
Wow.
rocks and
Wow.
stuff like that. So, um, yeah, it was an experience. It was an experience. The safari was great. Um, I always thought elephants, you'll hear them coming, but they're so graceful coming out the bush. Warthogs, lions. The kids even spotted a cheetah that just made a kill, and it was it was nice. It was really nice.
That's a great experience, Mike. And, you're talking about South Africa and integration and everything else. And Columbus, quite frankly, has changed quite a bit
Hmm.
in the 16 years. You're no longer that single dot on the map, you
Right.
know. And I think it's been great for the school. It reflects Miami,
Hmm.
and it gives kids an opportunity that they wouldn't have gotten at a public school.
Yeah.
And I think having other young African American guys on the staff
Hmm.
just helps in so many ways.
Right. And it helps. Like you said, so many ways. It builds a connection. There's someone like you who is there. I think Coach Campbell is really doing a really good job with BSO,
Yeah.
and there's some activities. So we pair up with Black History Month. So we go over to Virginia Key, and talk about, the historic aspects of Virginia Key being here in Miami with segregation, which, goes back into some similarities over in Africa. How people had to wade in the water for certain rights, and we
Yeah.
don't want to reverse that clock or go back into those situations. So I think as a minority, being represented within the Columbus community is important because, and I'll be honest with you, to respect the football team, you got to respect who's on the team as well, and you have to understand where they come from,
Yeah.
uh, or basketball or whatever team. Um, and there's a lot of minorities on the team, but they might not be represented in its full color. And I think BSO and having Campbell, myself, Coach Jordan, uh, having Shep on campus is we know how to pull those kids and interact. Like, hey, um, I always tell them, yes, you're here for academics and sports, but you have to know how to navigate. So having professionals tell you how to navigate your career, whether that's through football or track or whatever, to take you to the next level, you got to get your degree and know how you're going to navigate your life if athletics or it's not going to work, and how to network through um, the Columbus connections as well, because you're part of that community now. So we want you to understand that you are entitled to taking advantage of that as well.
Mike, I usually end the podcast by asking, the person I'm speaking with, what does Marist mean to you? And I don't have to ask that, Mike, because it's really amazing that a young black kid from South Ridge can come to Columbus and be Marist in your actions and not know anything about that. And you're a real credit to our school, the way you conduct yourself, the way you interact with the kids. You're a living example of, and I'm not blowing smoke at you, you're a living example of what a Marist in action should be. And, I'm glad you agreed to do this, Mike, because, it is pretty smart to fly under the radar at Columbus, and just do your job. But you've done so many things, and this was a great opportunity for people to get to know you a little bit. And I've enjoyed this one as much as I've enjoyed any of them, Mike. And
Appreciate it. How
I
can I
know,
see that to you?
I knew you were a little reticent about doing it, but see, I mean,
Yeah,
it's easy, man. And but on behalf of everybody, Mike, and I'm being serious. Thank you for the weight you carry at Columbus High School, because it's people like you that make the school what it is and keep it what it is, and are going to make it even greater as we move forward. So I appreciate you very much, Mike.
no, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
It was fun, man.
Always,
It
always
was good. Buenos tiempos for sure.
appreciate it,
So,
baby.
all right, Explore Nation. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation with Coach Dukes, and we've got some more good ones coming up. So until next time, as always, Adelante and take it easy. Thank you, Mike.
No problem. Adelante.